Hello, thank you so much for clicking this video. Today, I am going to give you 10 goal setting tips. One of the most common questions I get every single year, especially this time of year, is goal setting tips for beginners. Maybe next year, maybe 2023 is the year that you are really going to prioritize setting goals and focusing on those goals and following through on them. But I also know there are a lot of you who have been around, who have set goals in the past, whether you are not new to my channel and you've been setting goals with me for years, or you've been setting goals or New Year's resolutions for many years before. I also wanted to give tips to those of you who it wasn't your first year setting goals. So I thought it would be fun to give goal setting tips based on how long you've been setting goals. So we are gonna do 3 categories: first year setting goals, second year setting goals, and 3+ years setting goals. Now, you can use the timestamps down in the description box to just jump to the category that suits you, or you can listen to all of them. I do think there is still value in each of those categories, depending on how long you've been setting goals. But I think if you are first year, second year, 3 years plus, I think really listening and taking to heart the tips that fall into your category. So let's start with first years. I feel like that's like almost a Harry Potter reference in there somewhere, but it is your first year setting goals. And I want to give you 3 tips, things to remember as you are jumping into goals for the first time. Tip number 1 is don't overthink the prep work, regardless of what goal planner you're using. And I did a video a few weeks ago with tips on using your goal planner. That one is specific to using a goal planner. Whether you're using one or not, you're likely going to do some sort of reflection or prep work in order to pick your goals for the next year. You're gonna have to pick your goals somehow. I don't want you to overthink it. It can feel like all this pressure in the world. I've got to pick the perfect goals. I've got to answer all the questions exactly right. I've got to really make sure that I am picking exactly what is going to be perfect for the new year. You're never going to know what's perfect for the new year. Every single year since I've started setting goals, I've changed my mind at some point during the year. You are allowed to change your mind, which means don't put so much pressure on yourself at the beginning to set these perfect goals. Don't overthink the questions. Get through whatever prep work you're working on, whether it's through a goal planner or not. Get through it, pick goals, and then start taking action. If we spend way too much time thinking and reflecting and preparing, we'll never get started, and therefore we'll never finish. Tip number 2 is to remember that blank space is okay, especially if you're using a goal planner. But even if you're not, you do not need to fill up every line of every planner, every hour of every day. You can leave blank space. There are likely a lot of goals that you want to achieve, right? There's a lot of things you want to go after. Maybe there's a lot of things you want to change about your life. I'm so excited for you, and I firmly believe that you can achieve all of those things, and you can achieve all the goals on the right timeline. However, you can't do it all at once. There are only so many hours in the day. And so you are going to have to get comfortable, likely, with leaving blank space. And again, whether that's in a planner, in your calendar, or just letting go of some goals, but remembering that that's okay. What we're focused on, if this is your first year, is just making some progress, setting some goals, and following through on them, even if it's not all the progress that you wanted to make. But especially when it's your first year setting goals, you likely will feel a little bit intimidated and feel like you have to fill up every line of everything, and you don't. And I really think, especially your first year, you're probably better off not filling up every line, because you are still getting used to the process of setting goals and seeing how you can fit it into your life and into your calendar. And so if you fill up every line, you're gonna have a hard time finding time for all of those goals. And then you're gonna feel overwhelmed and behind, and then you might not follow through on any of them. I would rather you leave blank space and really focus in and follow through on that small set of goals and actions. And then tip number 3 is to make a goal to check in with your goals. If it is your first year setting goals, make a goal to actually check in on a regular basis with your goals. It's a habit. It is a habit and a rhythm and a routine to have some sort of goal setting process. And whether that's just a list you keep somewhere in a notebook, which, by the way, that video is coming soon, how to goal set in a notebook. I heard you a couple of weeks ago that is a video that you want, and I will be making that video. But regardless of where you are setting these goals, set a goal to check in with your goals regularly. All right, moving on to year number 2. Maybe this year, 2022, was your first year setting goals, and you are moving in to your second year goal setting. You've learned a lot. You've likely learned a lot. Whether you made a lot of progress or a little bit of progress, it doesn't matter. You likely learned a lot this year about yourself, your scheduling, goal setting, follow through, etc. But at the same time, it probably still feels very new to you. I remember when I was in year 2 of like regularly setting goals, not just New Year's resolutions that I gave up on halfway through February. I no longer had a goal to check in with my goals, like I talked back in the year 1 category, but I was still trying to figure out how to make goals work for me, how to set realistic goals that fit within my life and my schedule. So I have 3 tips for you to keep in mind as you move into your 2nd year of setting goals. Tip number 1 is to remember that every year is going to look different. Maybe you made a ton of progress this year. You came out of that first year gate with all this motivation and you made a lot of progress on your goals this year. And if you did, that is awesome. I hope that you are super, super proud of you. Maybe you are disappointed. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you're like, this was my first year setting goals and I really didn't make any progress. And if that's you, if that's how you're feeling, that's okay too. I hope that you're still proud of yourself for trying, for setting the goals, and likely you made more progress than you think you did. Even if you didn't hit all of the goals that you wanted to set, I guarantee you made more progress than you think you did. Regardless of whether you made a ton of progress or little progress this year, every year is going to look different. Your life is different every single year. The environment, the outside world is going to be different every single year. There are so many factors that come into play when it comes to goal progress. The actual goals that you set. Some goals you're able to make more progress on in a year than other goals because of X, Y, and Z reasons. There's so many other factors that can impact your goal progress. So I want you to remember that every year is going to be different. If you're the person that made massive progress this year in 22, don't get frustrated or upset with yourself if halfway through 23, you don't feel like you're making as much progress. Every year is going to be different. Every goal is going to be different. And the same applies the other way around. If you're upset or disappointed in the progress that you made this year, that doesn't mean next year is going to look the same. Next year can look completely different. This is frankly a good reminder for all of us, because for as long as I've set goals, the amount of progress I've made every year has looked different every single year. Tip number 2 is to trust the process. Likely, especially if you're somebody who felt like you didn't make as much progress this year, you might be questioning the system, right? Or like goal setting in general. Like, well, maybe goal setting just doesn't work for me, or maybe I'm just not someone that has enough willpower to follow through on my goals. I want you to take a second and take a deep breath and just trust the process. That first year is gonna be a massive learning curve. Think back to anything you did for the first time. Were you awesome at it the first time? Was it perfect the first time? Absolutely not. But whatever that was, you trusted the process to keep going and to try again. And I want you to do the same thing here with setting goals. I want you to trust the process. If you do feel like you need to change up your goal setting system, for whatever reason, I completely support that. I also have a video about picking a goal planner that might be really helpful to you if you feel like the planner that you used or lack thereof in 22 didn't work for you. But I want you to continue to trust the general process of goal setting in year 2. And then tip number 3, something I kind of referenced already, and that is to celebrate more. Likely this year, you were probably a lot harder on yourself than you've ever been before. And you probably didn't celebrate all of the progress that you made. Maybe you weren't really tracking your progress, so you can't see the progress that you made, or maybe you were tracking, but you still are focused on the blanks or the lack of check marks. I don't want to worry about what you did or didn't do in 2022, but starting next year, I want you to focus on celebrating more. Whatever that looks like to you. Maybe it's writing down all of your wins in a notebook. Maybe it's sharing with friends and family the progress that you're making. Maybe it's sharing it with me. I love getting DMs, hearing about your wins and hearing about your progress. Whatever it is, I want you to celebrate more going into the new year. Celebrate the progress, celebrate the small steps. All right, moving into our last category, which is you have been setting goals for this will be at least your 3rd year setting goals, or even more than that. You're probably almost a pro at this point, depending on whether it's your 3rd year or like your 13th year. Either way, you probably feel like you have a good system, a good rhythm of setting goals, and you probably still have hesitations about moving into a new year, but you still feel pretty good about your goal setting process. So I'm gonna give you 3 tips for those of you who fall into this category. And if you're somebody who it's your first year setting goals, but you're like, I wanna hear all the tips, and so you're still watching at this point, you're still watching this category, I want you to remember that it's okay to let these tips go, okay? So tip number 1 is that it's okay to change your goal planner and subsequently what you put in your goal planner. There are so many wonderful tools and so many great options out there that are gonna be good for different people, right? Referencing back to that same video where I talked about how to pick a goal planner, some of those things are gonna be innately you, right? Like the fact that I prefer a coil is like, that's not gonna change depending on how my life changes. But what actual goal setting system I use could very much change depending on where I'm at in my life. So if you are at year 3, it's okay. Don't feel like just because you've used something for 2 years and it's worked for you, doesn't mean that it is absolutely the best option for you in the new year. At the same time, don't feel like you have to put all the same things in your goal planner. Maybe there is a goal you've been working on for 2 years and you feel like you're in a good place with it and you want to keep tracking it somehow, or you want to keep prioritizing it, but you don't actually want to use your goal planner for it. Also a great option. I recently did this. If you watch my goal setting videos, I talked about how for years I included my business in my goal planner because that was what worked for me. And for a lot of that time, my business was a side hustle. I was outside of my 9-to-5 corporate job. Now that my business is a full-time business, my life has changed, things are different, it no longer fits in that same goal planner, and that's okay. It is okay to change it up, and don't feel like just because something worked for you before, you have to make it work for you going forward. Tip number 2 is really more questions, things I want you to ask yourself as you think about moving into year 3. The first one is, 2 questions are falling into the same tip. The first question is, what's working? What is working about your goal setting process? Could be the planner, it could be the breakdowns, it could be how often you set it up, whatever it is, what's working about your goal setting system? And keep that, don't change it. And then the other question, I'm sure you saw this coming, is what is not working? What isn't working? Which goals did you not make any progress on? By the way, that doesn't have to mean that it's you. You're not the problem. It could just be the goal and you need to let go of it. But what's not working about your goal setting process, and how can you change that? After 2+ years, you likely have some knowledge of how you could alter that. And you're always welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to help figure out a solution. If you're like, this is what's not working, but I don't have a solution for it, let's chat about it. And I am more than happy to try and help you find a solution. But that's a really important question when it's something that you've been doing for multiple years. And then the last tip, for those of you who've been setting goals for years, is to consider sharing your journey. And it may not be YouTube, right? Like that may not be it for you. You may not want to do what I do and post a video every single month talking about your goals. Maybe it's just an Instagram account. Maybe it's just with a close friend or a family member. But I will tell you that additional layer of accountability makes a huge difference for me. It holds me accountable first off to actually setting my goals. It also holds me accountable to following through on them because I know I'm going to be sharing that progress. Now, does that mean I'm perfect every single month? Not even close, but I do know that there are some times that I'm like, oh, I really want to get this check mark because I'm going to be posting this and sharing this with the world. I also have said this before, so if you are considering YouTube or even just sharing with a friend or a family member, but verbally talking about my goals, I get things come up. I think of things, I remember things, I realize things. I get a lot out of just talking about my goals. So if there is some way that you would feel comfortable sharing your goal journey or your goal progress, especially after multiple years of setting goals, I would highly encourage you to do that. And then we are gonna close it out with a bonus tip that applies to every single one of us, regardless of how long you have or have not been setting goals. And that tip is to make sure that you schedule time to prep for the new year. I would not recommend waiting until January 1st and waking up on January 1st and being like, okay, I'm gonna set some goals today for the new year. I would highly encourage you to set aside some time in December to start thinking about the new year. Now, that does not mean that if you found this video late or it's January already and you haven't set goals by January 1st, that the entire year is gonna be a failure. Either way, you still need time, I believe, to reflect and plan and prepare for the new year. And if you're doing that in January and not kicking off till February, awesome. I think that that is a really great option as well. But if you are watching this video at any time around the time that I released it, you're already thinking about your goals for 2023. I would recommend setting aside time in December to work on those goals. And if you need some extra accountability with that, I am hosting 5 goal setting prep sessions. That is right, you heard me. I am hosting 5 goal setting prep sessions to help get our goal focused community ready for the new year. We are going to reflect and do our prep work. We're gonna pick our goals for the new year. We have one catch up co-working call, then we're gonna break those goals down, which that is a session I have been doing for years, where I have been walking our Patreon members through breaking their goals down for the new year. And then the last session is actually setting up January. So if you feel like you need a little bit of extra support, come join our Patreon community. Let me know if you have any questions, and we are gonna get you all set up for 2023. that is gonna be it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. Leave a comment down below with what year it is for you that you're setting goals. It's your first year, second year, third, fourth, fifth, whatever year it is that you're setting goals. I'm so happy that you're here, and hopefully you find my videos helpful and supportive as we embark on our goal journeys together. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. In this video, why did I say that twice? I am awkward this morning, getting the kinks out. It's Monday morning, I'm trying. But at the same time, it still feels like to you. This hair is driving me nuts.